Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, David here, and welcome back to another Atlus news episode. And today's video is going to be small stuff, small news, just getting this out there as we start the video, but very good news and exciting news in the long term. Now, I know we're all very hungry for any type of Atlus announcement for 2025. Believe me, I know we're that greedy because last year was so amazing with Persona 3 Reload, with Unicorn Overlord, SMT5 Vengeance, and Metaphor to wrap things up. Cherry on top. Banger year. We're all in agreement that last year was crazy. Well, this year, nothing's announced, and that's not what we're going to talk about today, but I know that we're hungry, and again, if you want to stay up to date on all things Atlus, please consider subscribing because I am going to be first in line reporting as soon as anything leaks or happens. So, what happened is Sega hosted an investors meeting for their fiscal year, which is ending March 31st, 2025, so at the end of the month, and they talked to their investors, talking about their plans and everything. And they had a lot of interesting things to say, so my sources are always in the video description. Please consider looking at the VGC Video Games Chronicle article that I am talking about today. So they basically summarized the investors meeting with some of the interesting information that we need to talk about today, which includes Atlus and more specifically Persona plans. Sega is planning to release fewer new games in the next year, but invest in its Persona, Sonic, and Like a Dragon studios, it said. When asked about its plans for the next fiscal year, which runs from April 2025 until March 2026, Sega said it would release fewer full games overall. Currently, the company's announced full games include Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, Shinobi Art of Vengeance, and Project Century, which is the new RGG Studio IP, plus its legacy IP revivals for Virtual Fighter, Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe, and Streets of Rage. And then they said, quote, "The plan is currently being formulated, but we expect the volume of new titles in full game to be lower than this fiscal year," Sega said of its plans of the upcoming period. On the other hand, we expect continuous revenue contribution from repeat sales of new titles in full games this fiscal year and full-scale revenue contribution from new titles in F2P. So when they're talking about full games, they're excluding live service titles and multiplayer focus games, you know? Now, the interesting part here for us, Atlus fans, during its earnings Q&A, Sega was also asked if it was considering acquiring any external studios to bolster its development efforts. It replied that it would like to strengthen Persona Studios at Atlus as well as Ryagu Gotoku Studio and the Sonic team through hiring and M&A. Quote, "Atlus is an important studio for us to expand the Japanese IPs overseas, and we think it's necessary to strengthen it. And the studios involved in the Sonic and Like a Dragon IPs are also short of staff, and we are looking to reinforce personnel through additional hiring and M&A." Now, what I'm getting out of this is Sega is focusing on some of their more successful studios, which would include Ryagu Gotoku, of course, with the Like a Dragon franchise, which these games are doing better than ever. And man, do I love to see it because that franchise is very important to me. Sonic team, because it's Sonic. I don't have a lot to say about that, but Sonic is huge. So of course, they're going to focus on Sonic. And when it comes to Atlus, they're mentioning P Studio, the Persona studio at Atlus, which is working on Persona games. So definitely their games have been doing crazy well lately. Let's focus on Atlus. So if you're looking at Atlus specifically, Persona 5 changed everything. When Persona 5 dropped, everything that came after it started to do way better than it used to beforehand. We had some successes with Persona before. Persona 3 and 4 would be considered successes. Nothing close to what P5 did. Persona Q, when it comes to a spin-off, was very successful in 2014 when it released. It was like very successful for a smaller game like this. But when P5 dropped, everything changed, you know? And after that, we saw continuous successes with spin-offs like Persona 5 Strikers selling over 1 million, with Persona 3 Reload, the most recent mainline Persona title to release, breaking sales records, selling 1 million in a matter of days after launch. So it's only natural and honestly unsurprising that Sega is going to invest some more in the Persona team and Persona studio. What's next for Persona? I mean, I did a whole ass video about that early this year. I can summarize that really quickly for y'all. But one thing's for sure, Atlus has been doing yearly Persona releases for almost a decade at this point. Think about this, since 2015. The Persona dancing games, all the spin-offs, all the re-releases of P5, all the ports, all the remakes and remasters, everything that they did, when you look at it year by year, again, I'm not going to go in depth because I did in that video. Link is in the description. Please consider checking that out. But I made it clear that, hey, they're doing yearly releases. So it's clear that they're going to keep doing that. So this year, there is going to be something Persona. I am pretty sure. So what is it going to be? And probably Persona 5 The Phantom X, the worldwide release of that game. I think that is imminent. I think we're going to see that anytime soon. That is the gacha PC and mobile game. Maybe they do more with it. They talked about a console version of that game. It's possible. The betas were very successful. Maybe we see a new spin-off before Persona 6 releases. We're in March. I don't expect Persona 6 to release at the end of this year anymore. It's still possible, I would say, but they would need to announce it very soon. It could just be a port for their game. I know this would be a little boring as a yearly Persona release for a lot of y'all, including myself, since we played since we played that game before, and that would be Reload on Nintendo Switch 2. So there is going to be the big Nintendo Switch 2 presentation and Nintendo Direct early April. I'm super excited for that. If Reload releases on Switch 2, I'm going to be very excited for that. I know it's not the case for everyone, but this could be our 2025 year, a port of Reload with the DLC and everything included for full price on Switch 2. This wouldn't shock me at all. And I'll even say, I definitely expect something Atlus to show up next month at this Direct that we're going to be streaming on the channel. The live stream is already up on the channel as well if you want to check that out. But again, just to summarize what we talked about today, Sega is going to have a slower year this fiscal year. So from April 1st to March of next year, slower year. It's not surprising. I expect that as well for Atlus. We could even read between the lines here and deduce that Persona 6 is not going to release this fiscal year, probably. I might make a video on that now that I think about it, but if they're planning a slower year, I think the biggest thing that they could do in terms of a Japanese game that would do crazy well that isn't Sonic would be Persona 6. I think it's that big. I think we're going to see RPG records get broken in terms of sales when P6 releases, probably next year. So my bet would be it's going to release after the fiscal year since they're planning a slower year. But they didn't really say slower. They said like less releases and everything. So we'll have to wait and see. I could speculate for a long time, and this was not the goal. But to me, it's exciting to see. I am, of course, still thinking about my baby, which is mainline Shin Megami Tensei. And I'm like, let's not forget that Persona started from mainline. And I obviously don't want to be worried, but I'm kind of being a little worried about mainline. But at the same time, I'm like, SMT5 did so well. You don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket with Persona. So Vengeance did really well as well. So I definitely think that they still want to keep mainline going. But I sadly don't think that the tendency of us getting like yearly Persona games and maybe even more in the future, but us getting less other stuff, I don't think it's going to change. I think we're still going to get less other stuff. And that sadly includes mainline. It includes new spin-offs like a Soul Hackers 2 in 2026, something along a project of that scope and size in 2026. I don't think we should expect a lot of those anymore, sadly, especially since now we don't really have a 3DS on the market. All platforms are going to be able to run the same games. So I think they're going to, push these AAA Persona spin-offs and Persona things more than anything, but we'll still see mainline. And oh yeah, I'm getting off tangent again. I appreciate you guys watching today's video. Thank you so much. And again, please tell me, what do you expect as far as the future of Persona goes? And please consider checking out the VGC article and my video talking about what's next for Persona. Links are in the video description. Have a good day, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.